I was, and I still am, just looking out over a little bit of downtown Charlottesville with an empty parking lot and empty streets. And I'm in the lovely Live Arts building, and it too is empty. But Live Arts is not empty. It's full of your love, and it's full of all kinds of activities and education opportunities. And we're gearing up for summer camps. And so check out livearts.org and see what we're doing now. We're also doing this, which is 30 and 30. 30 and 30, kind of a look back over the first 29 seasons of Live Arts, and a forging ahead to what Live Arts will do next. This is episode 22. My name is Ray Nedzel. Hi. Episode 22, we're talking about season 2011 to 2012. And we'll be joined with our special guest, former executive director, Matt Joslyn, in just a bit. Hey, I want to thank one of our community partners, Hotcakes. Hotcakes over in Barracks Road. Hotcakes, they make delicious cakes. They're hot. They make delicious desserts, but they also do catering and gourmet meals and great lunches. Check them out, hotcakes.biz. Or use the Google. So thank you, Hotcakes, for supporting Live Arts and supporting art and live theater in Charlottesville. And now you can tell that I'm actually standing here in Live Arts in the lobby, third floor lobby, in front of the Founders Theater. And that's where I am. And joining us from New York City right now is former executive director, Matt Joslyn. So welcome, Matt.
Hey, Ray.
Oh, hey, there you are.
I wish I was in that lobby with you right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, we did spend many hours in your, how long was it? 6.5 years here?
6.5 years, yeah.
Many hours, many shows, many late nights, many trips on the Fringe team over to Scotland. So it's nice to see you again. You're in New York City. Are you doing well? Doing okay?
Yeah. I mean, the city is, as everybody knows, the city is a really strange place right now. In our neighborhood, we're kind of at the bottom of East Harlem and the top of the Upper East Side, and so it's starting to get a little bit more normal here. The restaurants still aren't open, but people are going to parks, and of course we walk the dog. And but the Midtown is the real heartbreaker. Like going into the theater district, it's a ghost town, and it's strangely emotional to see that. But we're here, and apparently the rule is that if you go through an event like this and live in New York City, at the end of it, it means you're a New Yorker. So I got that to look forward
to. That's great. Can you briefly, because we have a couple of things we're going to do. I have actually Shannon has created a slideshow of this season, which features a show that you directed and a show that I directed, 2011, 2012, and a whole bunch of other things. So I want to go through that, but since I know you well, it's hard for me to believe, but you're not here in the lobby anymore. So can you tell us about how you found out about Live Arts and briefly, like, your experience here?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of my Live Arts pals know that I was originally an actor. I studied acting in college and then got my grad degree in it. And so after grad school, I stopped acting, and I got into the fundraising, executive director, administrative side. And I did that up until the 2008 financial crisis. And then I kind of thought, oh my gosh, theater is such a challenging, under-resourced industry. So I'm going to go where the real money is. I want to go out to Los Angeles and pursue film and television. And I lasted about 2 months in LA. And one of the reasons why I lasted so briefly there is that I was looking at national job postings for theater jobs every day obsessively. And this post came up for this theater in Charlottesville, Virginia called Live Arts. Charlottesville was already on my radar as a place that I wanted to live. Who doesn't want to live in Charlottesville? It's beautiful.
Number one city, according to U.S. News and World Report.
Exactly. It's a beautiful city. It's a college town. It's got fantastic culture. It's got a philanthropic community. It was, it kind of hit all the notes. But when I read the post and I liked what I read, and then I got on Live Arts' website, and I don't know if anybody remembers, there was the site then was the building. Do you remember this? And it had these little kind of tricks in it. So you would mouse over windows and things like that. And
Easter eggs.
Yeah, it was great. But what I saw in the language on the site is this organization that is deeply rooted in its community, believes it has a mission to serve its community, and at the same time has this incredibly artistically ambitious programming. It was doing work that really was only done at some of the most, for lack of a better word, avant-garde theaters. So anyway, long story short, I applied for the job. I had my first interview, and they called me back and they said, we want to have a second interview. And I, before my second interview, drove back across the country to my hometown of Columbus, Ohio. And I just thought, I loaded up the car and loaded up the dogs, and I said, I've got to go get that job. So thankfully, that ended up coming true.
Good. Thankfully it worked out. And I tell you what, let's look at, we're going to jump a little bit, go into this slideshow. We have probably lots of an unlimited amount of stories that we could tell, but this is the season that we're featuring tonight, which is 2011 season, 2012. And which I guess was your third?
I started in 2009, but it was January. So then I finished that season, and then that was 9, 10, 10, 11. So this was my third season there.
Third season. And what was Producers the first show that you directed for Live Arts?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's always an interesting thing.
And it was also Julie Hamburg's first season. She the board hired Julie in the I guess that summer maybe is when that was finalized, and then she started right when the season began. So right. We started with Tracy Letts.
Tracy Letts and Superior Donuts.
Oh, that was a great show.
Yeah. He's a great playwright. And again, this is, I think maybe after he wrote this. I guess he wrote this after August of Sage County. Did
he really? I guess you're right. You know what's interesting about Superior Donuts, if you don't know this, did you know it had a sitcom life that Tracy Letts, it became a CBS sitcom with Judd Hirsch for 2 seasons, which was weird. I watched it once. It had a laugh track, which just didn't feel right. Yeah. But they took the characters from the play and turned it into a laugh track sitcom.
Oh wow! There's definitely tons of funny moments and some really great acting in this. And I've said this before.
That's Sean Hirabayashi, by the way. Was he Russian? He was a
Russian, Serbian, Russian something.
He was.
And Sean McCord as the heavies.
And that set, by the way, that was one of the things that I love about Live Arts is the relationship with UVA. That I think this might have been Katie Bell Springman's first set, if I'm not mistaken, who was an MFA grad, scenic design student. So there's some beautiful hyperrealism in the Founders Theater. And Jake Anderson
and Robert Ray. And hey, speaking of Superior Donuts, Jen and Matt from Carpe Donuts. No?
Yes, I love them.
You're shaking your head. No, I got it wrong.
I love them. And
Carpe Donuts.
They were our sponsors. So they not only did they give us the props for the show for what was going to be at the counter, but they also, as I remember it, I think we also served donuts at intermission in the lobby.
The whole place. it was great. The whole lobby in the theater smelled like donuts. So it had an authentic, on many senses level. Like Ike and Jerry.
And
But
you know who else was in this show that was amazing? Remember, Diane Key played the crazy. This is Diane Key right here, and I can't remember how we found her, and I think it might have been the only show that she did with us.
Right.
But she played this kind of like, I don't know if the character was homeless or a bag lady or what, but she was also like a truth teller. And wow, was she fantastic.
Yeah. And well, what I was going to say about the set, hyperrealism in this case, or whatever it is that there is, whether Katie designed the set or whoever designed the set, there's just a great transformation that happens so often in what normally could be a black box. And I'm a Peter Brook fan, so every show could be done with an empty space and a stick or whatever. But it's a delightful workout. It's actually a great part of getting a whole nother group of people together to build the sets, to paint the sets. The floor, I know in this case, is painted, and that's not an easy process to do. It takes some time, and it's really a good process. The other thing that I think that what I really like about doing shows at Live Arts is that it can bring someone along. Someone say, "Hey, I'd like to be I just like to be a set designer sometime," and they say, "Why don't you come on and be like assistant here?" And come and just see what the process is like and what we go through and the sketches and the models and the colors, and come to help the build and come help paint and kind of learn not the only process, but a really pretty good solid process that Live Arts has. And then the next time you can be a set designer, this is Jason Jones, by the way. And it might be Jason Jones's only show here at Live Arts, but it was incredibly entertaining, just as a person in life. We have a weird connection, but because I met him while we were sleeping in the back of a van together, because he was friends with one of my college friends, and we left New York City in a rented van to go to a wedding in the Berkshires, and we didn't have a place to stay, so the two of us rented a van, and he threw a mattress in the back in Brooklyn, and we drove up to the wedding.
That checks out for the two.
Yeah, it's fine. It's good. And then he moved to Charlottesville because his mother had retired here to Lake Monticello, and he's a designer and an artist and a dancer, and in this case, a Chicago police officer.
Oh, that was a great show. This one, okay, so this was my directing debut at Live Arts, but the first thing I want to talk about is this incredible poster. Sarah Holdren did all the posters this season. She was on staff. I think this season had amazing posters, the producers in a lot of ways doesn't fit that kind of Live Arts model. It maybe from a distance doesn't fit that Live Arts model of kind of edgier, more avant-garde, more left of center. I would argue to you that it fits it beautifully because it's such a gorgeously subversive piece. And what Mel Brooks did originally with the film, and then with the musical, and then with the musical back into a film, to reclaim the Hitler narrative and turn this notorious, monster into a cartoon, an absolutely parodied cartoon, I think is no small feat. And of course, this poster for pictures of Hitler to be hanging all over Charlottesville, everywhere you went, proudly. I mean, there's something quite subversive and powerful about that, which is really satisfying. So
there's Sarah Holdren is a polymath. Is that the right word? Polymath. She's multi-talented in many different ways. But I love this poster too, just as a graphic designer, because it's bold, it's catchy, and even if you were so far away from it that you couldn't read anything about it, it actually then comes into focus in another way. So as a graphic designer, it's just a really good work, and it kind of carried through. I remember there was T-shirts made. I remember it definitely had
we had a whole merchandising line.
Well, the whole cast. It was one of those shows where the whole cast really, really loved doing the show, and it was a big cast, and the audience loved it too. Of course, it was really well done and really well performed. And
you know, the other member of this cast that is not on the Live Arts website, we'll have to get this corrected, is if you look right next to Tom Howard, down there, yeah, there you go. That is Ethan Allen Hawley, the late Ethan Allen Hawley, who departed the earth back in October. But Atticus and Ethan, my dogs, were with me for all the rehearsals for that thing, and I think they loved being in the theater, except for when Noah Grabeel came out on the huge. There was this enormous staircase.
Oh, right.
For the Roger DeVries number.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing about producers that's fun to mention is and actually everything in this season, just about, carries on that tradition of shows that shouldn't fit into Live Arts small spaces, and it was great fun to make this one fit. This was who did the set for this one? Do you remember?
This is a by the way, this is just a great photo of I know I know it's from the end of the play, but it's also just a great photo of
Doug and Kip.
Of Doug and Kip.
Leo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that shot. That was them. I can't remember whose invention that was in the design, but it was the whole thing went black, and that was them. That was their Into the Sunset, and we had a fog machine back there. It was a really great moment.
Yeah, and this is Kip's first role on stage, and he snagged the lead.
It was Kip. Well, you know what? That's another great Live Art story. We were auditioning that show, and Kip was the accompanist, and Kristen Baltus and Mark Goldstein were music directors, and so it was behind the table was me and Jerry Carlson Sauls and Kristen and Mark, and I think Phil was assistant director on that. Anyway, we had finished auditioning all the Leos, and we were talking about it, and Kip kind of quietly from the piano said, "Hey, could I give it a go?" And we had floored all of us, and we said, "Yeah, of course you can give it a go." And then he gave this really amazing audition, and was a really spectacular Leo. And of course, that's Michelle Majorin as Ula, which every time I see her, all I can think is "Picture resume." if you remember that play.
Yeah. And of course, Doug playing Ballystock.
Doug was amazing in that role.
Yeah, he
was just so and it's such a huge role. And that picture is that enormous soliloquy, like the mental breakdown that he has toward the end, which is like the whole reason that number is even in the show is so that Nathan Lane could have a chance at winning the Tony. That's it. There's no other reason for and it's a great song.
So
the other story. Well, there's two more stories about this play that I want, and then I'll shut up. And well, that's not true. I won't shut up.
Well, I'll say this too. I just cut you off. You said, "Can I tell two stories?" And now I'm the moderator to cut you off, because I just wanted to mention that the choreography in this show was totally solid and funny and live. And then it was Jerry Sauls, right?
Jerry Sauls. We had such a damn fun time on that. This is if you don't know the play. The little old ladies are the rich ladies that fund Max Bialystock, and he's seducing each one of them, and this is their number on walkers, the big huge dance number with walkers, which they tapped with. Oh, it was so good. So one of those little old ladies was Jen Schindler, performing in the show in her first Live Art show next to her husband Mark Schindler. And they had just moved to Charlottesville, and it's a really lovely Live Art story because Mark is trans, and they found their first Charlottesville family at Live Arts by showing up to audition for a play. And I think it was Mark's first coming out in Charlottesville was to his producer's cast. And of course, in Live Arts fashion, that was embraced gorgeously and without anything. Of course, it wouldn't be. Of course, it would be embraced like that. And so it's just a really beautiful. It's just one of the things about live arts of which I'm so proud is our ability to. I think we had this in the lobby for a long time. Turn strangers into friends in 5 seconds flat or something like that.
Right. Yeah. No, it is welcoming to all.
And this is the inimitable Carrie Moran's costumes. So that was the real star of this show, by the way, were the costumes.
Which often happens. Find out that Carrie Moran is the real star of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, let me answer your question from earlier. Is that Mary Butcher was the scenic designer, and that James Hart was assistant scenic designer. He's a great designer in his own right. So that's because it was a really a nice set, and also to wrap around that idea of putting that big show into a small space. Take this big Broadway show and put it into what is not a big Broadway space.
And you can just see it dimly lit there. That's Hitler's stripper pole. That was a Mary Butcher invention. Because during the big number, we had him do a pole dance, which was, as if we needed to take the Hitler part and make it more over the top. That's one way that we claimed it for live arts. The other story about this piece that I just wanted to shout out is I have so many stories about that production, but Cy Becker. Many people watching will know Cy, and if you didn't get to know Cy, I'm sorry, but the Becker Bar is named in his honor, and Cy really wanted to play Hold Me, Touch Me, which is the name of the character that Max Bialystock has the big seduction scene with.
Right. And
I'm not sure Cy ever forgave me for not giving him that. Nissa Leddington was brilliant, but yeah.
And I'm coming back to my my other sentence, which is that there's something also magical, I would say, something really because when taking that big show, put it into a small space, and the first time I realized it was when I had previously seen Urinetown on Broadway, and then I saw Urinetown in the Gibson, which was then called the Downstage, and I was up in the balcony in Broadway, and it was fun. It's a really fun show, but it was so much more fun to have Lock, Stock just be talking to you, and everyone's no more than 3 or 4 rows away. Yeah. It's just it brings an intimacy to these. And I think then when the big numbers bust out, the big numbers come, it's a more of a delight. It's a surprise. How do you have 13 people dancing on stage all of a sudden?
13, that's small.
That's small, I know, it's small.
This is not a pipe dream. This was the teen piece that year, with an incredible ensemble of faces that a lot of people will remember. Baby Daniel Neal, I think, just graduated from CMU there in the center, got his BFA. I think that's right, Ray? Did he just graduate this year?
Well, I don't know that, but I will say congratulations to him. He's really talented. He was very talented when he was here. So, and I guess college graduation is about the right age for him now. So,
I think if it's not this year, then it's next year. So sorry, Daniel, if I got it wrong, but I think you might have graduated this year.
And Will Rucker, who looks like a teenager in this picture,
Will Rucker directed this.
Directed it, probably while he was a UVA student.
And that's Tiff Ames in the front. Sorry.
Right, T in the front, and what another, obviously some of the people who started as teens are still here or who grew up here, have come back, and T just directed Rent last summer, and it was a great production of Rent, again done with everyone who was 20 or younger. Just really, but I think that the pictures also from the show represent the convergence or the re-envisioning of this black box theater into what it needs to be for the show. I think the show even had a trap door
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Um, and and it is there is that type of like that limitation spurs often a creativity when if you had an unlimited big stage. Sometimes it's just too much to fill, and then you think you can do anything. But I have to be exact or precise,
Yeah.
or be able to deliver exactly what I want to in a vision.
And also
Is
to
really,
operate from a place of scarcity, I mean, I think that I think that's one of the things that blossoms gorgeously at Live Arts again and again and again is what Live artists are able to accomplish.
yeah. I'm sorry, I was
Tease for Fear
laughing
was
at
13, wasn't it? The musical. I think that's right.
what did you say? That
I think T's first show at Live Arts was 13.
Well, I know they were in 13. I don't know if it was their first show,
Okay.
but yeah.
This play,
But
if you don't know it, if you're watching, you don't know it. This is a theater for young audiences piece about young Renee Magritte, and so it is a piece about finding your artistic voice, especially when others don't understand you. So it was very Live Arts, really visually stunning, amazing lighting in that small space, and really incredible of what that whole team was able to pull off. Look at that. That's gorgeous.
yeah. Ooh, ah. It, it seems like there's so many plays going on in this one play.
It's true. That's a
Uh,
beautiful shot, isn't
that
it?
is beautiful. I think that's where the trap door is. I think you could go into that box and then leave the stage. If
Note that you and I couldn't go into that box and leave
no,
this,
yeah, I was saying
but that
right,
actor could.
right. I could stand behind the green apple with a hat on.
This is your show.
Well, it's Annie Baker's show,
Let me
but
say something about that before you do, and then you tell your
yeah,
story
sure,
about this, because I
sure.
love this piece. But so we people may not remember that are familiar with this season. When we announced the season, it had a big French farce on it in this slot called A Flea in Her Ear, and as happens from time to time, the stars didn't align to be able to pull that show off. So we had to change shows, and that was Julie's first season selection as artistic director, because she didn't choose this season. The Live Arts staff did, but now she was artistic director and she had to fill the slot. And I think one thing that I just want to give a shout out to Julie, every other play in the season was written by a cisgendered male playwright. And Julie made it a part of her mission to produce no less than one female playwright on every season. And I mean, that seems a little bit ridiculous now in 20, we were in the early teens, we were talking about 50-50 by 2020. Well, now we're in 2020. And in a lot of ways, 50-50 meaning 50% female playwrights, 50% male playwrights. Now I think there's a lot more balance in all theaters, but I just want to give a shout out to Julie's efforts to do that, which really made a big difference at Live Arts.
Yeah, and then I think that doing that, she set up Bree really well, who was able to take it farther and say, I'm gonna take this ratio that mainly white male playwrights are being done 80% of the time, and only 20% is it not a white male playwright. And she said, let's just flip that ratio, and let's have 80% be not white male. And in that season where she came up with that formula, that was one of our most successful seasons. So because one of the reasons that people always say is like, oh, these are the established plays. This is the thing. This is what people know. You have to come and do your Shakespeare and Ibsen and whatever, Shepard and I'm just naming playwrights I like, by the way. So I'm not bashing those playwrights, but they are all white men and all dead. So Annie Baker.
Amazing cast you had for this one, though.
What's that?
this amazing cast you had for this.
Oh yeah, yeah. Coley came out of the blue, as so often happens, and joined Jerry and John, who had done lots of things already, and continued to do work here, on stage and off stage, and supporting live arts. And Sarah was also, this was her first show here.
Was it Sarah's first show?
Well, it was her first show here.
Yeah.
And she, I'm gonna say she was 24. She's playing a 17-year-old. She goes, I look so old. Like, you look 17. Anyway, she played 17. Great. You could see it. If you could see the picture, sometimes they're small, but in the green sweatshirt, it's almost like she's like, my mom sent me to this class. You do what you want to do. I'm going to sit in the corner and forget you people.
By the way, the reason that we have mirrors in rehearsal A is because of your show.
Well, because of Jeff Bushman, because of my show, because of this show, because he's a great set designer. I've been lucky enough to work with Jeff, besides being a great architect and everything else that he does. But on this show, very small, intimate show, and also on Guys and Dolls, which was a big like art installation of a set. But yeah, he said, I think I got a connection to a guy in Waynesboro, maybe getting rid of some big mirrors. If I can get big mirrors and a steel door, can we use them? Like, yeah, absolutely. So the idea was that this is in Vermont, a class for adults, a kind of an acting exploration class. But none of the people in it are actors, except one character that Kate plays is someone who left New York after not being satisfied with where her acting career was going. And it is exercises, it's invitations, and all these relationships. Like, every character has a relationship with every other character on stage. I don't mean a relationship, but they have a connection. They have an understanding. They have a misunderstanding. Their weaknesses are shown. Their vulnerabilities are shown.
It's like everybody at Live Arts.
Yeah. It definitely is a play that plays really well to a theater crowd. It was this hot play at the time. It had been at Playwrights Horizons in a small space, and you couldn't get a ticket to it.
Which, by the way, speaking of Bushman, remember you had he put ductwork. I mean, I wish you could see. You can't see it in these photos, but remember there was ductwork going across the ceiling.
Yep.
I think he wanted to kind of contain the piece a little bit, and rather than have the huge high ceiling. Remember that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah, we had the ductwork around, then we had to figure out how we're going to work the lights around the ductwork. But
right.
But yeah, but this is in one exercise is that that all of the characters, and one of the things that's brilliant about a lot of Andy Baker's plays, but is that there's not an explanation. Like in this case, the actor is speaking as if he is a different person in the room, but no one says, okay, now tell the monologue of the 17-year-old girl. So you see this like 35-year-old man just being a 17-year-old girl and failing and trying to get it right and trying to be sensitive and trying to, she's in the room too. And then you kind of figure out what he's doing. And then other people, in the audience and on the cast figure out what he's doing. And then it moves on to something else. So I'm really happy that Julie picked this to go in, because it was obviously Annie Baker's written more plays and she's much more of a well-known playwright now.
Well, she's won the Pulitzer since this, right?
Yeah. But at the time, unknown-ish, definitely in Charlottesville, unknown playwright,
yeah.
unknown play. I guess some people might call it experimental because it doesn't follow a normal narrative. It tells 5 different narratives, but not a direct story arc, even though they all have their story arc. And we ideally we all see ourselves in 1, 2, 3, or 4, or all 5 of the characters. Um, that's Kate was already an excellent hula hooper, but Kate, her character was going to show off how she could do hula hooping. And not only did John's character become attracted to her partially inappropriately, but he also couldn't hula hoop. And it was very funny every time he did it. And John said, I don't think I'm ever going to learn because it's I'm not supposed to be able to do it and I can't. And so I'll just be me. But I say this is not me as a director, but I was the director, but some of the finest acting from all 5 of those actors in this, because of the nature of the play. There's no room for facade or for there's room for listening, and there's room for listening in the audience. There's tons of room for listening in her plays from the audience and from the other characters, and it kind of brings in this they're just there, and then as the audience we're just there, and it was definitely a highlight, I think, of being able to help shepherd 5 actors into some very fine performances. Nice. In a very natural way. The Addy machine, again, I know it transforms the space again because I saw the show. Bree brings a musical to an unknown musical, not unknown.
So Addy machine was Brie Luck. Yeah. It's on this like amazing steampunk set that was designed by Slusher, right? Will Slusher.
Yeah, Will Slusher, right.
Had an elevator in it.
Elevator, right.
And but I also think Addy machine, and it's an opera, by the way. It's not really a musical. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think there's a single from what I remember, I don't think there's a single spoken line in the piece. I think everything's sung. But I think Addy machine is probably from this season the thing that is like the most that kind of quintessential live arts identity, right? It's subversive, it's really left of center, it's dark, it's a social commentary, not everything is dark, but this one is dark, bleak. It definitely is not for all markets. And if you don't know it, it's a 1920s, I think it's 20s, right, Ray? But a play by Elmer Rice. It's a social commentary on automation and what's going to happen to the worker when the worker is replaced by computers. And the aptly named protagonist is Mr. Zero. And he's just the worst. He's just the worst. And that's him in the middle. That's the incredible John Cobb.
Yep. John Cobb and and
would it be insulting to John to say that he's like Charlottesville's Daniel Day-Lewis? Would he that?
Well, I mean, no, like, no, because I think it's apt because he's so he has this like core of like he's built as an actor, like so Daniel Day-Lewis, I sometimes would think of as like Charlottesville's John Malkovich. He's just so talented as an actor.
Hoffman.
What's that?
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Or Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah, those guys who are they are, I guess Brando's the old classic example from Streetcar, but where they in performance, they are just the character.
Yeah.
And it's a really, as an actor, it's a really great thing to watch. And another thing that happens is I don't sing a lot, John. John's just a talented actor. So, but because there's lots of talented people in the show. I'm looking at 2 other people right here who are talented in the show too. But he does have that like special actor's gift. And he was just performing at Live Arts for a while, and now he's not. That happens where people are some people have left New York or a Broadway show or touring shows or a career as a professional actor, and then happen to be in Charlottesville for 7 years. There's a great place for them to perform and to perform great roles. Some people have performed roles here and then have gone out to LA to do shows, to do TV, to win Emmys, to host shows, to be on Saturday Night Live. There's just not just because it's been around for 30 years, but because while people are in Charlottesville, whether they have this place where other people want to do the work simply because they want to do the work. Anyway, that's that all started with me saying John Cobb is a great actor, and he still is.
Well, and that was also Chris Esty that we just saw a second ago, who's been in a bajillion shows, and I got to direct at least once, twice, just twice maybe. And also Mike Long's wife, I can't remember her name.
Maria, of
course.
Beautiful voice.
Yeah, she was incredible in that show. And Bree, I think, I just, to give a shout out to my friend Bree Luck, Adding Machine, Eurydice, Grey Gardens, I think are some of the strongest shows that Live Arts ever did. And here's another one with another gorgeous poster.
Another gorgeous poster designed by the director of the show, Sarah Holdren. And this too, of course, this is, I know this is a show that if I don't know what the stats are, but no other community theaters, other volunteer-based theaters are not going to be doing He Who Gets Slapped. This is
no way. I mean, I think this show really probably lives in academic settings more than anything now, and it's. If you don't know the play, it's an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous play. Sarah really wanted to do it, and of course, that when the staff chose the season, everybody was totally unanimous about Sarah doing it. I feel like the ending of this play is the most astonishing gut punch, and it was delivered beautifully. The design's gorgeous, and what you're looking at, if you didn't see the show, is like Bard of Avon. This was. Beard of Avon, was put into the corner of the Gibson, so the audience was you're looking into the corner by the scene shop doors. I think is the side that they did that on.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'll say that Grady Smith did the set, and Grady was the technical director at Live Arts for many years, and he's also going to be our guest tomorrow night.
I love that guy.
Wait till the end of the show to say that, but not only did Grady design a set, maybe one per season or something like that, but he was because he was so kind and multi-talented and visual and artist, and very helpful and caring, in that he would make other people's sets better while he was here, or find ways to really let the designer and the director kind of get that vision, so the audience comes into the space and they see not necessarily what Grady wants, but what the director and the designer want them to see. So
I would also say, there's the other big Live Art story here is just to give a shout out to the amazing Sarah Holdren, because she was on staff at this time. This is a human who grew up in Live Arts. It was her home theater. It's where she kind of, pretty much learned everything about theater, doing shows there, and then graduates up to being on staff, and then graduates up to directing her own show, and then from there goes on to the top directing program in the country, if not the world, and is one of 3 MFAs that came out of Yale, and then becomes this incredible rising star critic in New York City. I don't, if you don't know this, if you didn't, I'm gonna, of course the Live Arts community knows this, but if you haven't read Sarah's reviews while she was at the New Yorker and Vulture, just incredible, deeply thoughtful, incredibly insightful things that won her awards, and then has decided to go back to directing, as I understand it. Right? Is that right? She left.
Yeah, that's right. She made a joke the other day about, I decided to go back into directing, and then all the theaters shut down.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is.
It's a great Live Art story, and that the Holdren family are the Barrymores of Charlottesville, right?
Oh, yeah,
that's the story.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if any of the Barrymores were directors. Maybe that's not the right.
Right.
We have to find. Anyway. if you haven't read He Who Gets Slapped, you should read He Who Gets Slapped.
Yes.
Hairspray. This was Lydia's, right? Lydia directed
Yep.
Hairspray?
Lydia directed Hairspray.
I
Well,
love.
Lydia directed Hairspray, and it's
Love.
the Harans. The Harans were the other.
Juan Fontaines of
Yeah,
Charlotte.
Lydia and Michael were here and performing when I got here. They had two young daughters who took classes here, took dance classes, Orange School of Dance and ballet classes, and then became just super or I don't know how that works out, nature nurture, but became super talented actors in their own right. And there was a moment, and that goes back to Urinetown, when Michael, Addie, and Maggie were all in Urinetown. I used to refer to the show as the Haran Family Singers. But yeah, so Lydia directed Hairspray.
And this was in that time, we were having these not debates, but we were really trying to figure out what is the summer model of the summer musical. And so I think 13 was all young people, I think. Or maybe there was one teacher, but I think it was predominantly young people. And so we were having this discussion of, is it all young people, or is it adults playing adults, but a predominantly young people cast? And so this is one of the models of adults playing adults, but the young person cast. Peter DiMartino was Edna. He was running the AIDS service charity in Charlottesville at the time. Jane Scatina was with Baltimore Crabs. And I guess her final bow at Live Arts, right?
Yeah, she talked about it last night, about that at her last show, and the cast surprised her, and Doug came on stage and said a few words which she can't remember because she said she was crying the whole time. But yeah, she was well loved, and she knew that 3 days later she was going to be moving, I think first to San Francisco, and now she's in Monterey.
Do you know, by the way, I'm pretty sure it's Hairspray that John Waters, the creators have a rule that this is astonishing that this had to happen, but when the show began to be licensed, the rule was that if you didn't have Black actors to play the Black roles, you couldn't do this show. Like,
oh, that's good. I thought you were going to say it had the divine rule where
but I think it speaks to, how much better we've gotten about representation, certainly in the past couple of years, because that even that had to be spelled out, that you might a high school might want to do this and decide it's okay to do it with an all-white cast. Again, this is John Waters. It's subversive. It's very political. It definitely has a strong point of view. That point of view is very much the Live Arts point of view. And there's the Gare Galbraith, Charlottesville's comic genius.
Yeah, exactly.
Is Peter's husband.
Yeah,
that was a beautiful show. That set was gorgeous too.
Yeah,
and a total party, which is so fun about those Live Arts summers, is giving the even Rent gives the audience a party, even though it struggles with some really challenging themes and people dying and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Jane.
There's Jane. Baltimore Crabs. What a yeah. Delightful mind of John Waters.
I wish that this was like, not, if it was just you and me, we could share our favorite John Waters quotes, but all my favorites are not Facebook Live appropriate. Wow.
See, it's that was great. And also, like, the scenic designs of that season were awesome. They're just big and bold and colorful and deluxe. It was really, really good.
It was a good season. We had a lot of fun that season for sure.
Yeah. I'm not gonna let you go just yet, because I just wanted to ask you. Well, I wanted to ask you if you could share. You talked about Julie before, but are there other things, other highlights of your time here in Live Arts? I was going to say Charlottesville, but your time here at Live Arts.
Oh, Ray, there's a million highlights.
Yeah, that's the put you on the spot question, because you'll pick two, and then everyone will say, "Wait, what about the time we did?"
So, I mean, I think to me, probably the things that I personally treasure the most
Mm-hmm.
are the individual moments. I had incredible moments with a number of actors, either in my role as, you invited me into your Drowsy. I had amazing moments working with Doug and coaching him a bit on his Man in Chair that are incredibly memorable moments. There's so a lot of working with artists and figuring out how. I think one of the things that I learned how to do at Live Arts that has benefited me is how to nurture artists and how to really kind of see where people are and see how much they need to be pushed at this moment, how much they need to be lifted up at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that moment with Doug, that moment, Lindsay, when she was doing Les Mis with us, there were some beautiful moments. That whole Les Mis cast, we had really incredible moments with. So the personal connections matter the most to me, and goes beyond the work on the stage. That's donors and board members and audience members and our teachers and people in education. On a professional level, I mean, I would say it was pretty exciting to get to open up that reinvented lobby space was pretty great. So
yeah, that was great. And I don't know how to ask this question without spoiling the answer, but I know that you had a lot of help in raising that money and someone to really help get it started, who has just been a great, generous person to Live Arts, who I don't think has been mentioned yet.
Who's that? Friend Dorothy Batten?
Yeah.
Is that who you're thinking of?
Yeah.
Everybody's friend Dorothy Batten. She's not just my friend Dorothy Batten. Dorothy, yeah, I mean, she's the reason that renovation happened. I mean, and I don't know if how many people know this, but she's a big reason why the downtown. One reason, there are lots of people that have shaped that downtown, but Dorothy is certainly a big shaper of that downtown, including the ice park. I understand that's going to become something, or it has become something different now. But the ice park, the movie theater. She was instrumental in helping to build Live Arts the first time. And when we came to Dorothy and said, would you help us revitalize and reimagine these public spaces, she was the first dollar in and was the lead gift. And it would never have happened without her commitment. So, and on top of that, if I start naming names, I'm going to get in big trouble because I'm definitely going to leave somebody off. Because I don't have a list in front of me.
Well, there were so many people, like Elizabeth Lavaca, Will, Jeff Bushman, Jeff Dreyfus.
No question.
Even
the late John Black was one of our big supporters of that project.
Right.
Remember friend John Black, who loved Live Arts. So,
and then a lot of artists donating time and energy, or just recovering costs. Jay Kessler. Didn't Jay Kessler supervise
Jay Kessler was amazing on that project. He was our owner's rep, and he was incredible. He liaised between Julie and me and the board building committee and Alexander Nicholson, who was our contractor, and then also Jeff Bushman, who, I mean, how lucky are we that we got to work with Jeff? Not only the group that designed the building worked with him, and then he got to come back and revisit that design. That's something that not a lot of buildings get to do, is to say, now that we've been in this for, let's see, at that point it was 6 years. We've been in it for 6 years. We've seen how it's worked, and now we want to fix it and tweak it and get it right. Yeah. But also, like Matthew, I see the wood behind you. That was all. Do you know the story about this wood?
Not fully. Why don't you tell me?
So I'm blanking. I'm going to remember Matthew's last name in a second. But Howard Pate brought him to Live Arts in this project, and all the wood in the building came from one tree on a Stuteville farm, Viggy and Trixie's place, and I think it was called like a spelted like a spelted ash or spotted ash. I can't remember the name,
Right.
but he and actually there's a terrible story. I don't know if I should tell this, but I'll tell you. There's a juicy story. Not that juicy. While he was working on this tree, because he had this like felled tree, right?
Yeah, and he was milling it there,
yeah,
right?
like it went from, so he's like, yeah, I think when he told us this, by the way, I don't know, I hope I don't get in trouble for telling this whole story, but I think he said, I've got this tree. And we were kind of like you don't just like cut a tree and put it on the wall, right? This wood has to be dried and cured, and I assume. So yeah. Well, we're going to do all that, but he was going to go through it slowly and get the best. So it's a work of art. But the tree also was infested with poisonous caterpillars, and the poor guy, while he was making the damn thing, got bit, and his whole hand swelled up, and the whole. He didn't stop working, to be fair. He kept in live arts fashion.
Right.
And that rug, by the way, that you're standing near, hopefully, is that rug still there?
Still there, yeah. It's kind of
so that was designed by Matthew Thomas, and it has a word hidden in it, if people don't know that. Did you know that, Ray?
I didn't know that. Now, I'm going to...
Yeah, you can read it. If you pay close attention, there's a word in that rug.
Theater?
No, what's the most important word at live arts?
Forge.
That's right. Well
Let's
done.
see it now.
It's right in there.
Wow.
So
I didn't know Matt Thomas designed that. That's awesome.
Matt Thomas did that rug, and there are so many other. Well, and Alexander Kitchen, of course, with the he's the concrete artist, did all of the bar top and Daryl's office and the staircase. So we had such an incredible team on that. Everybody from Charlottesville, the entire team was Charlottesville. All the builders were Charlottesville. All the suppliers were Charlottesville. It was a homegrown project.
Yeah. Well, that is, it's great. It's great. When people who had not been in the building before, I think what I would say is it just makes it look like the intention was achieved. You know, like it's an open space, it's a community space, it's a professional space, it's an artistic space, and you're here. The lobby sign downstairs, art, film, theater, and it really is to me. You know the Shakespeare Theater in DC?
Yeah.
They had this crazy lobby renovation type thing where you have to put the glass out over the sidewalk and stuff. So it has that type of feel to it, like, oh, I'm in a place where people care about how things look.
Well, and I would also say, I mean, however, I don't think this was intentional. You know, if you go back to the original, I wasn't there, but as I understand it, the way that the lobbies were finished was not the original intent. Right? They kind of, the project wasn't, as I understand it, the project wasn't fully funded. They didn't reach the goal. And so they had to make some compromises at the end and do some what's that called? Value adjustments, or, and there's a little gentle term for it. You know, the staircase wasn't, what was realized is that wood staircase is not what Bushman had intended and Gibson at the very beginning. So, but then we also learned, I would argue, and Julie and I believe this, and then our whole crew, like Howard and of course Howard Pape and Will Kerner, and we had an amazing committee working with us. Jay Kessler, I'm trying to remember, Gene from Gene and Mike from Ceiling and Floor Shop worked with us.
Oh yeah.
You know, what we talked about is that the space was not supporting the mission. Because the building didn't feel inviting, it wasn't easy to navigate. It didn't have clear places to gather. That our mission was saying, everybody get in here. This is the community commons. Come in here. You're welcome. Join us in making theater together and making art together and creative expression and all of that. But the building was working against that. And so the argument, which I think is true, is that if we fix that, we can radically change the number of people that come through our doors and the way that they interact in the space. So.
Yeah. Well, can't wait until the doors are open again and people
Man,
could be.
it must be such a heartbreaker. I mean, listen, I'm sorry that I opened talking about New York being a heartbreaker with its theaters, because everybody in Charlottesville knows what a heartbreaker it is to not have live arts.
Yeah, and
There it is. Value engineering. Thank you, Carrie Moran.
Value engineering.
Scott.
Anyway, yeah, I was just saying way earlier, that it's a Friday night, downtown mall, and I look out and there's no one walking around. There's no cars in the parking lot. There's no cars in the parking garage, but they will return. And I'll remind people that go to livearts.org and you'll see all the stuff that we're doing and all the opportunities for you to get involved there. Hey, Matt, I'm going to give
say one
more thing. Okay, cool.
And then I'll hang up. And that is just to the point of what live arts is. I just would make the case to anybody watching that in these really, every time that we're in these perilous, scary, uncertain times, it's natural for most of us to think about, where are we going to give our resources and support to the places that matter the most, right? We're going to need to feed people. We need to house people. We need to do the essential services. And I would just argue that live arts is a deeply essential place, service, commons for Charlottesville. And I encourage everyone to be generous in helping live arts reemerge out of this. It's going to be hard for the company, I have no doubt. And I hope you give generously, because Charlottesville is what it is because of that incredible company. And I am forever changed because of my time with that incredible company. So,
Wow.
I love you, live arts.
Well, we love you too, Matt. Thank you for joining us tonight. And 30 and 30 will continue tomorrow. And tomorrow night, as I said earlier, our guest will be Grady Smith. Grady Smith, loved by everyone. Grady Smith. I can't wait to see him again. So have a good night. Take care.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Matt.
Good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.